Chapter 12. Custom Property Validation. Static and dynamic property fields validate property constraints of the vault behaviors, like requires value, minimum length, etc., defined in the property definition. Company individual rules may require extended logic or context-specific exceptions of constraints. This chapter is all about accessing and extending validation rules for individual properties of files and folders. Custom validations work almost identically in VDS for CAD and VDS for Vault, but the scope of custom rules could be different. Completing all exercises will introduce you to frequently asked requirements and solutions for both client types. By implementing additional script files and functions, you get introduced to the loading and registration behavior of data standard configurations. Workflow 1 of 2. Custom Validation Part Number Property. Vault Data Standard allows extending the rules on initial save by implementing exceptions for the property constraint given by the server. The completed rules of all exercise allow to leave the part number empty for new files, but enforce value in subsequent edit workflows. A custom tooltip extends the information about the required value. Workflow 2 of 2. Custom Validation New Folder Names. Another workflow being achieved in this chapter pre-checks folder names for uniqueness while running new standard folder windows. The custom validation rule compares existing folder names during the user's input. The tooltip returns a custom message. Prerequisite. The workflow scenario and exercises 1 and 2 expect having the user-defined property part number being enforced. Activate the constraint requires value as shown. Exercise 1. Custom validation for part number in VDS for Vault. Before you start following this exercise, ensure that the required Vault behavior described before is implemented. Step 1. Create new script file for Vault. Let's create a new PowerShell script in vault.custom add-in Vault folder and name it partnumbervalidation.ps1. All the scripts, regardless of their folders, are loaded, and the function names are registered. So the best possible case is to create functions that have unique names, except of creating an override for the default functions made by Autodesk. Create 2 functions, initialize part number validation and validate part number. Step 2. Initialize custom validation for Vault. We can create custom validation with any VDS property by adding .custom validation. Generally, dynamic validation is required for customization. VDS runs custom validation on property change. The event handler is already built in. Note that custom validations allow us to use variable property translations to adopt different Vault database languages dynamically. For example, prop_xltn_part number instead of just part number. If you need to support multiple database languages, you need to add the translation to propertytranslation.xml. Check Chapter 8 for more details. We need to call our validation function in the default PS1 for the File window. Step 3. Review validation behavior. Now restart Vault. This registers the new script file and its functions. Open the log window. Use the new standard file command. As we are typing in part number field, we can see our function running, and closing it returns false. Step 4. Complete validation rule. Our validation function is up and running. Our workflow should allow initial saves regardless of our validation. For any subsequent edits, we should enforce our validation. We should fix the length to 10 and start with ENG-. In case of an error, we should show an error message and return false. Step 5. Test validation for new and existing files. We do not need to restart our Vault again because we haven't added new functions to our script. Create a new file in Chapter 12. The OK button is activated while the part number value is empty. As we edit the file, the validation kicks in. Tooltip shows the error message. Fill the part number to match the requirements. Note that in case the OK button does not disable for validation errors, please check the file XAML btn-ok. The binding should be changed from isNotReadOnly to properties.isValid. Exercise 2. Custom validation for part number in VDS for CAD. We repeat the workflow of the previous exercise and implement the rules for CAD files. Step 1. Create new script file for CAD. Let's create a new script file like exercise 1, part number validation.ps1 in CAD.custom add-ins folder. The script files work for both AutoCAD and Inventor. Create two functions. Step 2. Initialize custom validation for Inventor and AutoCAD. Using different applications, the part number property name does not have a common name, so we should define a global variable and use it throughout our scripts. We can divide our initialization for both Inventor and AutoCAD. Remember, AutoCAD has different file property or attribute names depending on the chosen set. Check Chapter 4 for more information. Now let's add our validation function in default PS1. Step 3. Complete validation rule. The logic is identical for Vault Explorer with one small change. We use a global variable named mPartNumProperty. So a one-to-one copy completes the validation quickly. Don't forget to change the part number. Step 4. Test custom validation in Inventor and AutoCAD. Start or restart AutoCAD or Inventor applications. Create a new file and run the first save. There will be no validation. Now, edit the datasheet and you'll see the error messages. Exercise 3. Custom validation for folder names. we return to the Vault Explorer client to implement a custom validation while creating new folders. Recall from the workflow introduction that we like to pre-check for existing folder names. So instead of silently not creating a folder if an existing name was chosen, which is the default behavior of VDS, the user should receive immediate feedback while typing folder names. The 5 steps are well known from previous exercises, but the validation mechanism is a new implementation. Step 1. Create new script file for Vault. Let's create a new script folder name validation.ps1 in vault.custom add-in folder. Add the 2 functions like previous exercises. Step 2. Initialize the custom validation for Vault folder names. The built-in VDS property for the custom validation is _ folder name. Using the VDS property helps us avoid any problems for multi-language implementation. Activate the custom validation. Add the validation to default PS1. Step 3. Complete validation rule. There should be an exception where if a numbering scheme is selected, we are sure of a unique name. Note that we learned to address any dialog control by dswindow.findName, name of control and XAML, in chapter 10. So now we need to check if the folder name has a value or not. If not, we should let the user know with an error message. If we have a value, we should check if we are trying to create same named folder in the same folder path. If not, we are clear to create a new folder. Step 4. Bind validated property in new folder dialog definition. If you haven't already copy-pasted the folder XAML from your Vault folder, do that now to your vault.custom configuration folder. Search for the folder name and update the validated binding from name to prop_folder_name.value. Save the file. Step 5. Test custom validation for new folder command. Restart Vault Explorer and invoke new standard folder command in chapter 12. Try typing exercise and see how validation behaves. Chapter 12 Summary. This chapter is a must-read for readers eager also to learn the programming capabilities of Data Standard. While creating new script files and functions, you should always bear in mind that all files residing in the configuration files are loaded. VDS registers unique names of any function in the order A, default configuration, which is delivered by Autodesk, and B, custom validation. So, reusing a default function name in your customizations will overrule the default logic. You also learned the powerful options of custom validation constraints. Always bear in mind, the custom validation runs with any property changed event of the validated property. If you do even more extensive validations, including a Vault search, a user might experience delays interacting with Vault, and we might increase the communication thread of Vault clients to the server significantly. So use custom validation wisely and only as much as necessary. Chapter 12 Alternate Solution for Exercise 3. Chapter 12 Exercise 3 shares an alternate solution. In case you need to ensure unique folder names across an entire Vault, a custom search allows a high-performance query in any folder structure. Check out the alternate solution for the script folder name validation.ps1 in the completed exercise sample files.